and welcome back to Games in Education. Tammy Schrader here, and I'm so excited to do our second podcast because today we're going to talk about game theory. Now, if you just said to yourself, what the heck is game theory? We're going to explain it to you today and why game theory is so important in learning and education. So game theory is just simply an idea that learning is experiential, and not only experiential, but it's also very much flexible and on the spot, which is what games are great at. I'm going to talk about what games are really, really great at. So let me give you an example. When you're playing games, you learn two different things. You learn content. So you're learning whatever's going on in the game, and you're also learning the process. Let me give you a great example. I love to play rummy with my husband, right? And I noticed that when I play rummy with my husband, and by the way, don't tell him that I know this, but aces, kings, queens, and jacks, face cards, he hoards them. He will hoard them. He also likes to play this way. He will keep all the cards in his hand until he can throw them all down and win, right? And I have learned that that's how he plays. So when I play rummy with my husband, that's how I play. I play because of how he plays, and it's interactive. And games are very much interactive. When I play rummy with other people, I don't play the same way because they don't play the same way. And one of the things that games teach us is how to be flexible. How to be flexible, you learn a lot about your partner, and you learn gameplay through the decisions you have to make instantaneously every second while you're playing the game. So the three big C's of game theory, right? I want to talk about those. Actually, four. I lied. There are four. Communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. And I want to talk about those because that's where all the learning comes. It's fabulous. When I started playing games in my classroom, 7th grade biology, I was so concerned that kids would get so focused on what they were doing that they wouldn't really pay attention to what other people were doing. And I was really kind of concerned about that because collaboration is a major skill in their lives. It's a major skill in all of our lives. So what really happened though is kids would start playing games and they would start talking to each other through gameplay, right? And my favorite kind of game this happens in is when you play a game where everybody has to win or nobody wins. It is extremely enlightening. Let me tell you, my friend built a game and she worked with adults, which is even better. And in this game, you're trying to make your way around the board. Now, I don't know if you have noticed this about American culture, and I'm not trying to be negative, but usually how American culture works is get all you can, take all the resources, and be the first. That's just how it works. Well, it's really fun. She said it was really fun to watch adults play this game because you can't win the game unless everybody makes their way around the board at the same time, right? And everybody has to cross the finish line together. And she said it was really interesting because she watched these adults play this game, and the adults would race around the board until they got about to the third corner. They're coming up to the finish line, and then they realize that the other players are way back at the beginning or right along that first line of play. And she said it was really interesting to watch the gameplay tactics change because they realized they can't cross the finish line without everybody, right? And she said it was really interesting. In fact, she did her whole doctoral research on this around how you change your behavior when you realize the rules of the game are not what you know what I mean? You realize the rules of the game aren't what you're really doing. What I love to do in 7th grade, we played a game where students would get resources. Okay, so it was kind of like an environmental game where you could fish the oceans, you could take resources from the land. And what I loved is, and this happened without exception 100% of the time, kids would lose because they had to share resources, because if everybody didn't win, nobody won, right? If we kill off our species on the planet, ladies and gentlemen, none of us wins, right? So the kids would play this game, and what did they do? They outfished the oceans, they cut down more trees than they needed, they used way more resources than they needed, and they tried to get as many as they could against their opponents until the end of the game when they would just lose, like everybody died. And then it was like, oh, we're all supposed to, so it means that we either all have to live or we all die, right? And that is the collaboration piece of game theory, right? You learn to work together. And even when you're trying to win the game, you still have to pay attention to what other people are doing. And when you learn that other people make decisions different based on different things, that like my husband stealing all the, keeping all the face cards, you learn to play the game the way your opponents are playing as well, right? So that's the collaboration piece. The communication piece was my favorite, especially on video games. If you have never heard of something called esports, I would highly recommend you look it up or come back for another podcast because we're going to talk about esports. And the reason I love esports is because you don't get to pick what motivates kids, and kids love to play games, right? I mean, I just looked up today how many Minecraft licenses are out there, and it is amazing. You should look that up. I'm not going to give you the answer. It's incredible, right? You don't get to pick what motivates people, and you don't get to pick what motivates kids. And what I loved about esports is instead of playing what we call a sport like basketball, baseball, pick something that we kind of think of as a sport. The WIAA in Washington State has said esports is a game. So what happens is these kids, they get in this line of computers and they're all playing a game against the other team. They're all in the same world. They're all playing the same game, right? Now, what I love is, so I got to go to Texas A&M this last year to see some esports camp. And what I loved is I walk in, these kids are playing, I don't even remember what they're playing, but it was a first-person shooter. So to be honest, it doesn't do anything for me, but I'm not motivated by that. They are. So these kids are playing, don't worry, they all had parent permission. They're all playing this game, and this kid in the middle was nothing short of incredible. He knows where every single one of these players are in the game and what they're doing. And he's directing traffic. He's like, okay, you got to go back there because we got somebody coming. And he was just yelling out this whole time. And I said to the person that running the camp, that's incredible. Like that's phenomenal, how these kids are just communicating about where they are and what they've got going on in this game. And he said, Tammy, what I love about this kid, the one that's in charge, in a classroom, he's probably the quietest kid in the room. He doesn't, it's not like him to yell out, but this kid was completely in control of everything going on in that game. It was amazing. The amount of collaboration and communication with kids is incredible. Creativity. I want to talk about creativity because games allow you to creatively think outside the box, right? Because not to be rude, or maybe I am being rude and offensive, but when you are filling out a worksheet and trying to find the right answers, there's no creativity there, right? When you are playing a game or creating a game, right? The amount of creativity that goes around figuring out how to beat the other person is incredible. If you've never heard of, and I can't believe I'm using this reference because I am not a Star Trek fan. I can't believe I'm saying that on air. But my good friend Al Gonzalez, I'll give a shout out to him. He's a Star Trek fan. And when they talk about this scenario, right, I'm sorry, I can't even remember the guy's name, the guy that's in charge, Captain Kirk, he is trying to win this game and it's programmed to make him lose. So he went in and reprogrammed the game, like behind the scenario so that he could win. Right. And in education, we call that cheating. But in the real world, we call that creativity. Right. Find a way around the system because that's where the imagination is. And that's where we break boundaries, right, in the world. It's amazing. The last thing I want to talk about, well, two more things, but I want to talk about what game theory has really gotten right. Critical thinking. We talk about critical thinking, and we should be really focusing on critical thinking in education because these kids are going to walk out into a world as adults like we all did, and you're going to have to be able to solve problems every day to the point of ad nauseum, and stuff is going to come up, and you're going to have to figure out a way to manage that, right? Critical thinking is just one of the most important things we can teach kids. And in games, any game you play, critical thinking is so important. How other people are playing, what they're doing in their game. You're always second guessing what they're doing and why they're doing it. If you've never played a game called Liar's Dice, totally fun. You sit around the table and you lie. You just lie about how many dice are out there, or what you think is out there, right? And you really have to learn your opponent, and you have to learn to communicate, and you have to learn to critically think about, okay, does this person really have 6 ones, or are they just making that up, right? And it's just this great, fast-paced game about how to move through the world. It's fabulous, right? Another thing that game theory says, and that I just find beyond fascinating is failing forward. I don't know about you, but I have kids that will come into my classroom and they say this. Like, I'll say, hey, what'd you do all weekend? We played Minecraft till 4 a.m. And I'll say, like, on purpose? Like, you do that on purpose? And it just drives me, it just is incredible to me, right? Because here's what happens when they play games. They will lose, and it's okay. They learn to lose, right? And it's fascinating because when I taught science, they would do a science experiment, and the first time it didn't work, they'd go, okay, Schrader, I can't do this. I can't figure it out. And they would just try it once. They didn't have that stick with itness that is so powerful in the world, right? But you put them on a game and they'll play for freaking ever. Like, they'll just play. But here's the thing that the games have down, that our gaming industry has this down. If they make the game too easy, it's not worth kids' time. And they figure it out quite readily. Yeah, this is too easy. If they make it too hard, to the point that, I don't know if you ever played Flappy Birds, but oh my, I wanted to hurt the bird. I'm just going to say it. If you've ever played a game that's just too hard, you go, this is not even fun. But what I love is that kids will stick with a game until they figure it out. And then it will become this big woohoo moment of, okay, I finally beat the crab in the game, or I finally beat that whatever it is, right? And what it makes me smile is it's not what I would call real, like it's not, but it's real to them, and they are in this world, and they are in this world to figure out how to win. If you've not heard of this game, it's called Minute to Win It. It will open the screen. You can play it on your phone, I think. I can't remember. That's the last time I played it. And you play this game, and you get 1 minute, and your job is to get from point A through the game. And please know, in 1 minute's time, 1 minute, the screen's going to go black. So the job is to learn as much as you can about where everything is and how to get through in 1 minute. Well, you can imagine the first time you play, you learn this much and the screen goes dark. And then you go to play again, but now you've learned something and you know how to get to this point, and then you're floundering around to get to the next point, right? And this game is amazing. And I think, you know what? Education should be built like this. A minute to win it. You're coming in, you know nothing, or you think you know nothing, or whatever you know you use, and then you get as far as you can, and then blank, the whole thing goes black. And then the next time you go in, right, that's what education's about. Education is about learning as much as you can and taking as many chances as you can to get it right. That's what we should be doing. The last thing I'm going to say about game theory, because I'm almost out of time, I can't believe it, is flexibility. Games teach flexibility. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you have a game, and I did this just this morning. It requires 8 people, and I'm looking up, and I've got 2 people to play. And I look at the rules, and I'm like, okay, we're going to just fix this game so that only 2 people have to play, because I don't have 8 people to play. Right? And it's that part of games where you go in and you just say, you know what? I'm going to change the rules because this doesn't really work for me. How many of you play Monopoly, right? Where if you land on the free spot, you have all this money in the middle you get, right? That's called flexibility. You know what? It doesn't really work for me to not be able to get out of jail free. So we're going to change this card and do that. And the cool thing about games is you can do that. They just lend themselves to this powerful, powerful place to create what you need. So, game theory, creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, flexibility, and learn how to lose. I don't know about you, but learning how to lose has been a very, very powerful skill. And we don't teach it enough. We think that people should just know that they're not always going to win. But the truth is, learning how to lose is an important skill in life. And so I'm going to end here. Thank you for spending time with me this afternoon. Next time, come back. Please feel free. We're going to talk about board games next time. Please feel free to make comments. I love seeing your comments as long as they're positive. And have the best afternoon ever. Thank you.